What if I told you that Charles Leclerc discovered something in Hamilton's car that not only surprised Ferrari, but could completely change the technical hierarchy of Formula One this year? From the moment the SF25 touched the asphalt, something was different. Not in the sound of the engine or in the speed in line. It was in the attitude of the car. How he took the fast curves. How he left the slow ones with a traction that until then had not been seen in any of the previous tests. Lewis Hamilton perceived it immediately. His experience, the one that has been detectable for other pilots for more than 15 years. What seemed a simple variation in car behavior, for Lewis Hamilton was much more. It was a discovery, a turning point, the type of finding that is not done in simulators or in wind tunnels. Only the body, instinct, and experience of an elite pilot can detect an improvement that does not immediately appear in the data sheets. While rolling in Mugello, back after return, something caught his attention. The stability of the car in fast areas, where a slight loss of adhesion or a minimum rebound would be expected. But this time, the SF25 remained completely planted. Hamilton did not express him as an excited pilot, but as an engineer who understands what happens under his feet. According to internal reports filtered after that session, it was a variation of only 6 mm at the height of the rear train. Just that. But those 6 mm, which would be insignificant for anyone, represented a total disruption in the Ferrari aerodynamic platform. In the era of the soil effect, where each air channel under the car counts, that reduction in height generated a much more stable and efficient laminar flow. It wasn't just that the car shoots lower, it was that he did it without generating rebound, without compromising the manageability. The SF25 could now maintain its pressure center closer to the ground without causing oscillations. That meant that the diffuser, the invisible but crucial piece of the flat background, worked at its maximum splendor. And when the diffuser works better, the whole car changes. Win more grip, more efficiency, and can enter and leave curve with an almost surgical composure. In that session, Hamilton managed to maintain a higher minimum speed in at least 6 key layout curves, according to telemetry records. But it wasn't just that. The most revealing was the consistency of the car. The way he responded without sudden variations, with a renewed traction especially in slow outputs, where Ferrari had been vulnerable. This extra traction not only improves the pace in long batches, it also reduces the wear of the rear tires. And in a season where every tenth matters, protecting gums can be the difference between fighting for a podium or staying in anyone's land. Hamilton went further. He did not limit himself to shooting, but worked with engineers for hours, contrasting sensations, discussing dynamic behavior, refining details. His intervention was decisive to understand that it was not an incremental improvement. It was a completely new architecture, a silent redesign that was now presented with forceful results. And the irony is deep. It was not Charles Leclerc who revealed the true potential of the SF25, but Hamilton, the newcomer, who came to Ferrari with a curriculum of 7 world titles, and with sufficient technical sensitivity to detect what others had not yet perceived. What Hamilton discovered that day was not a trick or a temporary advantage. It was a base. A new platform from which Ferrari can aspire to more than sporadic podiums. In Formula One engineering, great advances are rarely accompanied by fireworks. They often hide behind millimeter adjustments, in pieces that are not even in sight. That was the case of the new rear suspension of the SF25, a precision work that Ferrari kept secret until its track validation. The base structure was still a pull rod system, but there the similarities with the previous version ended. The boldest change was the relocation of the anchoring point of the upper arm of the suspension triangle. Instead of looking at the usual structural support of the chassis, this new anchor descended several millimeters and connected to a completely redesigned transmission housing. This housing, manufactured with ultralight and internally reinforced fiber compounds in critical areas, not only lightened weight in a key area, but also radically changed the way in which dynamic loads were distributed to the rear train. That downward movement reconfigured the cinematics of the system. The rear axle geometry now behaved differently in compression and rebound. The car responded with greater progressivity in intense acceleration situations, and here an essential concept enters: the anti-quad effect. This phenomenon, which helps keep the car more level during curve outings under acceleration, was now more efficient. Ferrari had found the exact point where the car not only remained firm, but did without compromising the tensile or behavior of the tire. The collected data allowed engineers to observe in real time how the new design was behaving when the car passed through aggressive pianos or stopped from speeds greater than 300 km per hour. The brightest design was not only its effectiveness, but its subtlety. Unlike the visible changes that can attract the attention of other teams, This modification was practically invisible to the eyes of rivals or photographers. There were no new aerodynamic appendages or surprising fins. It was pure structural engineering in a hidden, silent area, but tremendously powerful. And this is where the genius of the finding lies. Maranello's team had not only improved a part of the car, the base on which all its dynamic behavior is constructed was reconfigured. Because when a car can operate closer to the ground without suffering, without punishing the rubber, and with a rear that is firmly nailed to the asphalt in each curve outlet, what is obtained is a car that is not only faster, but also more predictable, more docile, and, above all, more consistent with the pilot style that Ferrari wants to explode in this new era. This type of evolution is not improvised. It is the result of hundreds of simulations, wind tunnel hours, joint work between the departments of vehicular dynamics, aerodynamics, and materials. But above all, it is the maximum expression of a philosophy to make the car work for the pilot, not vice versa. And that, in the case of SF25, has begun from the suspension. In at least 6 rapid layout curves, the SF25 piloted by Hamilton maintained a minimum speed between 4 and 7 km per hour higher compared to the previous Steins using the old car specification. This, which might seem like a small jump, represents a significant advance in aerodynamic balance and in the ability to maintain high-speed aerodynamic load without compromising stability. In F1, gain minimal curve means reduce return times without the need to squeeze the engine or assume additional risks. It is pure performance. Improved efficiency. At the balance level, Hamilton reported a greater ease to modulate the car in the transition between curve entrance and exit. It is no accident. The new suspension, by modifying the balance axis and maintaining the aerodynamic pressure center, allows a more neutral platform. This means less corrections, less sudden weight transfers, and less physical and mental demand on the pilot. The precision with which the car can be pointed at each vertex improves significantly. This type of behavior is not improvised. It is designed with patience. And what Ferrari discovered in those 200 kilometers was that his new concept not only worked, but was already delivering measurable and repeatable advantages. For Hamilton, who was still in his adaptation curve to the red car, this was key. Telemetry does not lie. And what Mugello delivered that day was not just a promise. It was a confirmation. Ferrari had touched a key, and now all the paddock, even without knowing it yet, was about to discover that the Scuderia had a new, silent, but lethal weapon. What happened in Mugello was more than a simple technical discovery. It was the birth of a new version of Ferrari. One of those moments that, seen in retrospective, end up marking a turning point in a season. Until that moment, the SF25 was considered an evolution of the previous car, with specific strengths but also with dragged weaknesses that kept a step behind McLaren and Red Bull. But since that day, the story changed. The possibility of shooting lower with a reinvented rear suspension and unprecedented stability is not just a technical advantage. It is an open door to a complete transformation in the philosophy of the car. It means that Ferrari can now redesign his aerodynamic load maps without the fear of causing instability. You can adapt your configurations to tracks with rapid curves traditionally and Achilles heel with much more freedom. And most importantly, it can compete from the base, not from the patches. But the implications do not end there. This advance does not remain between Hamilton, Leclerc, and its engineers. It has consequences for the entire championship. McLaren, undisputed leader of the start of the season, will have to review his own solutions, especially now that Ferrari seems to have closed the gap in one of the key aspects of this new generation: the efficiency in medium and fast curve without sacrificing traction. Red Bull, which already shows signs of internal and technical instability, cannot afford to lose more land. And Mercedes, with a car still in stabilization, observes this evolution carefully to try to replicate or counteract what is discovered in Italy. What separates the champions' contestants is not just talent or budget. It is the ability to adapt faster than the rest. And Ferrari, with what he has discovered in Mugello, has shown that he is prepared to do that. It's no longer about whether you can win races. It's about when and how. Because with a car that now has coherence, speed, and consistency, the only thing that remains to be defined is how long it will take to become the car to beat. After all that we have explored today, from the discovery of Hamilton and Mugello to the strategic implications that can alter the balance of the 2025 championship, there is an inevitable question in the air. Can this type of silent innovation be the difference that Ferrari needed to return to the top? Are we facing the exact point where a new era of red domain begins? Or is it just one more improvement in a sport where each team seeks each tenth desperately? Now I want you to be part of this conversation. Do you think this redesign in the suspension can lead Ferrari to gain races constantly this year? Or do you think that McLaren and Red Bull still have too much margin so that this advance that makes the difference? Let everything in the comments.